Assalamu alaikum students. Today our topic is the origin of Greek philosophy. I already have given a brief introduction about the beginning in the Greek philosophy. We know that Greek philosophy is divided into three parts comprising of rising, its heyday and its downfall. Anyhow, uh, right now we are going to sort out that what are the roots of Greek philosophy. The question right now we are going to sort out that from where the Greek philosophy emerged in the history of mankind. Obviously, it wasn't possible that all of a sudden at some particular time in the history of man, the Greek philosophy emerged out of somewhere. So it wasn't the case actually. It was rooted strongly somewhere. So what was that thing that we are going to sort out today? The first point you can see on this screen that Greek philosophy was rooted in mythology era, and mythology era is we start Greek philosophy from 600 before Christ from Thales, you know, and before Thales, the time was known as mythology, and it expanded to 2000 before Christ or 3000 before Christ, maybe 4000 before Christ. So, so that's too much big era. You can see comprised of 2 millennium or 3 millennium, etc. So right now we need to understand that what was the nature and what were the characteristics of uh, era of mythology. Uh, Mythology, the word actually comes from the word myth, which is known as a story that has no evidence, that has no any physical evidence. जिसको कि हम किस्से कहानियाँ कहते हैं परियों की. So mythology is uh, an era. When we associate some era with this term mythology, that means we want to claim that it was an era when there was no formal religion, no formal institutions, no formal education were found. The people used to believe in deities and god and goddesses. The people used to believe in the superstitiousness, and they had superstitious views regarding the formation and deformation of this world. People used to believe that some deities or some god and goddesses were holding this earth on their shoulders, and when they were angry, they would cause earthquake. So people used to oblige the deities so that those were not become furious to people. So the thing that we must understand here, we actually want to know uh, that the explanation of world or explanation of universe was a core concern in Greek philosophy. So we actually are trying to see at back era that were there explanations in those eras. So actually the people had no scientific or philosophical explanation of world at that era, in that era. But yes, they used to believe that the god and goddesses and deities are the owner of this world. Actually, they were trying to explain the world, explain the universe. They were actually understanding the deities, the god and goddesses as the causes of this universe. So I have mentioned on the screen, you can see. Let's define the mythology in different ways. Mythology is the first mean of communication of uh, the people of that era. That means people used to communicate to one another in form of mythology, in form of stories regarding deities and fairy tales, and they used to uh, communicate their feelings through the mythology. So mythology was the first communication of the ancient man. Then mythology was first civilization and culture of ancient man. Yes, these are two things: civilization and culture. And you must understand here the difference between the civilization and culture. Civilization belongs to the material things. That means what we wear, what we use, what utensils and pots we use to eat within them, and all our architecture, the form of architecture we used to live, in. So this is our civilization. What type of pots we use for our meals, and what type of houses and architecture we used to live within, and what type of clothing or dresses we used to wear. So this is actually civilization. So there were so many civilizations that we record in mythology. You can also search those civilization on internet. Uh, the civilization were comprised of the Iron Era, and then uh, the Brass Era. So you can further search out these topics there. Anyhow, now we come to the culture. So culture is something not material, that doesn't belong to material things, that doesn't belong to course, or that doesn't belong to architecture. Culture is actually the representation and manifestation of one's feelings that arises because of someone's surroundings, atmosphere. What type of society you are choosing to live in, that society will actually impact your feelings. Uh, so culture, now the mythology was equally communication of ancient man, it was civilization of ancient man, and it was the culture of ancient man. And culture manifests in form of singing, in form of poetry, in form of literature, all type of literature, in form of arts. So mythology was the first mean of communication of ancient men. It was the first civilization and culture also. I mentioned on the screen the two most famous poets from mythology era, the Homer and the Hesiod. Homer and Hesiod were the popular singers and poets of ancient time. Homer, they wrote the hexameters. Homer wrote Iliad and Odyssey, and Hesiod wrote Theogony and Mercante. And these were the hexameters. Hexameters are the poems which are comprised of thousands of verses. Like जैसे हमारी हीर रांझा है, that poem is comprised of hundreds of verses. So that's a hexameter. Homer and Hesiod, they were very popular. The people used to follow them. They actually communicated their culture, their civilization from one generation to another generation. They actually played a role like a bridge. They united one generation to another generation, from past generation to present generation or future generation, in form of their poetry, their singing, their writings. So this was the mythology. Actually, it was the world where all the people used to believe in fairy tales. They used to explain the world in form of mythology, in form of fairy tales, in form of they used to believe that the deities and god and goddesses were the causes of this universe. They formed the universe and they were running the universe. So it was their first explanation. Mythology was actually the first explanation of world of ancient man, although it was based on superstitiousness, but it was the first explanation of world. So we were talking about the origin of Greek philosophy. So yes, Greek philosophy was rooted in this era. It didn't come it didn't come suddenly out of nothing, from nowhere, but it was rooted in mythology. It actually the Greek philosophy was an evolved form of explanation of world that was rooted in mythology. So finally, we can define mythology, that mythology was the first unintentional, non-philosophical, non-scientific and unnatural attempt of explanation of world. Man, the ancient man, tried to explain the world, although it was non-philosophical, non-scientific, unnatural and informal and unintentional explanation, but it was the explanation of world that evolved in form of Greek philosophy, that we see in the 600 before Christ, when Thales put forward the question that what are all things. So actually that was the formal beginning of the explanation of world. So before that, this mythology was an informal explanation of world that was comprised of all the civilization of that time, all the culture of that time, and it was the mean of communication. It bridged the one generation from another generation, and it passed over the culture and civilization from one generation to another generation in form of poetry, in form of literature. And I gave you the example of Homer and Hesiod. You can further search out on internet further about some more poets and writers of mythological era. So our today's topic is compiled that the origin of Greek philosophy was mythology, and you need to read out the text from your book, the page number 17 to onward 19. And on page number 18 and 19 they mention the origin of Greek philosophy and all the division in Greek philosophy, the rise and ascendant and post-Aristotelian philosophy. I hope you understand well about, you have made your understanding about the mythological era, and you have made your understanding about what mythology is, how we can define mythology. And I hope you will understand that mythology was the first unintentional and informal explanation of word that was comprised of superstitious beliefs, superstitious creeds, and belief in fairies and god and goddesses. Thank you very much.